school academics at the Lagos State School of Nursing, now a College of Nursing, where she helped secure institutional accreditation. She also served as a principal nursing officer, overseeing approximately 3,000 nursing staff and leading policy development to strengthen the quality of care across hospitals in Lagos State. BC has contributed extensively to nursing education and professional development, including facilitating the Mandatory Continuous Professional Development (MCPDP) programs under the Nursing and Midwifery Council of Nigeria for several years, and has also served as a nursing educator at Links Institute, Brandon, Canada. Olabisi is also an award-winning scholar, having received the Child Health Graduate Studentship Award, the Martha Donovan Leadership Award, and the Irene Norwich Foundation Award, and has contributed to scholarly publications, including a systematic review, drawing on her global experience. She uses communication not just to inform, but to transform, elevating voices, building trust, and driving meaningful health and social change. Beyond her professional pursuits, Olabisi is a woman of faith, grounded in purpose and committed to continuous growth and transformation. Through her voice and platforms, she inspires others to discover their identity while fostering hope and healing. We can see that we are so blessed to have Dr. Olabisi Ayeni speaking to us on communication skill. You can see from our profile that we have somebody that is capable, that is fit, that the cap fits the head this moment. And I'm sure that today we will not remain the same again. Let me put it that way. I wanted to be speaking as if I'm in church, but I'm trying to refrain myself. Pardon me for that. But I'm sure that we will remember today for life. We are not going to, oh my God. She's here today. She's loaded. She's loaded. I'm sure she's loaded. So let me welcome Dr. Olabisi Ayeni to the podium as he takes us further in this meeting.
Thank you very much. Thank you for that kind words. And I want to also appreciate the board of directors of Forum for Nursing and Midwifery Practicing in Nigeria, Forum for Nigerian Nurses and Midwives Abroad. Yes, for this opportunity. I'm not taking it for granted. It's a privilege, and I want to thank you. I will share my slide shortly. If you can see my slide, can you just give me an emoji or a thumbs up? Okay, thank you very much. So, yes, thank you everyone for being here. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Like I said, it's truly a privilege to be here to speak with such an incredible nurses and midwives and healthcare professionals practicing abroad. I just want to know that, just like you said, we are going to go home with something. We're going to gain something, learn something, be inspired by today's presentation. Our topic today is effective communication for career growth. And honestly, I believe that this topic is one of the most relevant conversations that we need, because communication touches not just our professional lives, it touches all areas of our lives. I have a question. Have you ever stopped to consider that for almost every position that we apply to, for, or even the role that you are holding right now. One of the main things you are constantly assessed on is your communication skills. In fact, in global healthcare systems, strong communication is regarded as fundamental professional requirement. This is why when many international educated nurses or professionals immigrate from African countries to Western countries, one of the very first things assessed is English language proficiency or competency, depending. Why is that? Because communication is closely tied to how we perceive competence. It is strongly linked to, patient safety, teamwork, documentation, leadership, quality of health care delivery, in fact, almost everything. So they want to be sure we have all it takes, right? So this shows us that communication is not just a soft skill. It is actually a professional competency. Okay, so why effective communication? Why does it matter? Why does it matter? Before we begin, let me shock you with something. And this is reality. Poor communication in healthcare is killing people. It's killing people. So if you look at my slide, you'll see the statistics there. So people dying right now, is not a matter of lack of competency or lack of knowledge. There is a particular percentage of people, that lost their lives through just because there's trouble in communication, there's poor communication or miscommunication somewhere. Like, according to the BMJ, they said 251,000 deaths every year in the United States alone. Estimated preventable medical errors death through the medical errors. And, making medical errors is one of the leading causes of death. In fact, they said it's the third leading causes of death in the US. And studies have also shown that 80% of serious medical errors are linked to communication failures, according to the Joint Commission 2023. And even in handoffs, like, it is more alarming to see this number. 67% of communication errors occur during patient handoffs, shifts changes, transfers of care, something we do every day. So somewhere here, we are somewhere here between these figures, one way or the other, we are linked. Something's not, so if 67% errors that could be prevented is linked to, handoffs, problem, shift changes, then nurses are somewhere there. So think about that for a moment. The Joint Commission reported that 1,700 patient deaths die yearly and more than 9,700 serious preventable adverse events. Missed handoffs, unclear instruction, misunderstanding medication order, or a nurse is afraid to speak up, or maybe poor documentation. Those are the mistakes, small mistakes, but it costs lives. So today we are simply discussing communication, not just as a soft skill, no, the one we learned in nursing school. We are talking about communication as a patient safety skill, as a leadership skill, as a career survival skill. Because in this time and age, the ability to communicate effectively can literally be the difference between a person dying and a person living, between stagnation in my professional growth, or within stagnation in my profession or professional growth. I have a question. You can chat, you can send your answer in the chats. How would you feel receiving incomplete or unclear patient information during handoffs, or maybe shift report? How would you feel? You can answer in the chat. How would you feel receiving an incomplete or unclear patient information during handoffs? Yes. How would you feel? Yes. Many of the words that will come, the feeling of frustration, anxiety, confusion, stress, uncertainty. We feel nervous, upset, safety risk. Exactly. These are the things that we feel. If communication is poor, we experience uncertainty, right? However, it goes beyond that. It also influences how people perceive us, how we build trust. At every time we meet people, we communicate something. Let's have that at the back of our mind. We communicate at every interaction. It's either you're communicating competence or something else. For example, we may begin to perceive that nurse who gave us incomplete shift change report, or, as someone who might be going through something, or maybe incompetent in a way, or struggling with something. You might say the person might be burnt out, we can give different excuses. And sometimes we silently, in a way, we prefer not to take over our future patient from that nurse, right? We don't say it, but sometimes when you're going to work, I don't want her to be the one giving me reports, because it's never incomplete. If this sounds like something you have seen before in your practice, you can just send me a thumbs up. So at every communication, there is an interaction. At every communication, we communicate something. So communication shapes our trust, teamwork, visibility, influence, professionalism, how we lead, how we handle conflict. All these things are tied into communication, which ultimately affect our career growth. So there's this research by Ryan 2023. It's a very new research. It said it shows that nurses who communicate effectively are often perceived as more competent, more confident, and more prepared for leadership roles. So in nursing, communication goes far beyond carrying out, task, giving routine handoffs. It is a leadership competency. It is viewed as one of the most essential leadership skills. It helps with collaboration, and all that. I have seen some exceptional nurses who are highly skilled, hardworking, compassionate, knowledgeable, yet they remain unnoticed. They are underestimated sometimes. And because the struggle with communicating, sometimes they even communicate, but they don't communicate confidently. They can't express their values. They can't advocate for themselves or the patient. They position themselves negatively professionally. So every nursing interaction communicates competence. So now imagine the consequences of ineffective communication that is beyond nursing. Relationships, organizational problems. In fact, study shows that about 67.5% of relationships end due to communication problems. That's according to the American Academy of Matrimonial Lawyers. And in the business world, 87%, stems from problem, and they have to pay billions of dollars. It's costly. So today we are not simply, talking about, I want to speak better. We are not here to talk about that. We're not here to, we already know the S-bar. We know all this, verbal and non-verbal communication, giving feedback, all this. They are super important, right? But we will still remind ourselves today, we will examine areas where our communication was ineffective. We identify underlying issues. Why is my communication ineffective? Then we aim for us to take inspired action to move forward with change. So we want to take communication as a tool for professionalism that is needed for growth. And you can see our objectives there. Hopefully, we'll be able to finish all this today. Hopefully, fingers crossed. So what is communication? What is communication? There are many different definitions, by scholars. We have a lot of them out there. But according to Webster Dictionary, communication is the act or process of using words, sounds, signs, The first thing that jumped at me there is it's an act. Now, listen, it's an act. So sometimes it's not what you're feeling. We are all acting. Please listen to me. When you communicate, you are acting. It's like you are cooking. You are using your words, your sounds, your signs, your behaviors, your thoughts, your feeling. You are bringing everything together to act. That is exactly what we do. In the earlier time, Harold says it's communication is like who says what. She's asking like a question. Who says what in which channel to whom with what effect? That is who is speaking. What are they saying? How are they saying it? Who is listening? What impact does it have? That's communication. And the National Communication Association emphasizes the importance of sharing meaning, shared system. So effective communication is not like we're just speaking. It's essentially about being understood. Now we've talked about acting. We've talked about meaning. We've talked about understanding, All these things are coming together. Just stay with me. I hope you're here. I hope you're listening. You can unmute to just talk so that I can know people are there. Hello, are you there?
Yes, we are.
Thank you. So, for example, a senior nurse is, saying something to you and is unclear, or you are thinking is another thing. That person has not actually effectively communicated to you. Now, let's look back to how communication evolved over time. Transmission model of communication, we have interaction model of communication, and we have transactional model of communication. Transmission, interaction, transactional. Now, these models only help us to understand how communication works and how it has evolved, The simplest form of communication is I say something, you listen, and that is all. And that is the transmission model. Sometimes the PA system we hear from the hospital, patient code blue, or it's like I just say something, the receiver receives it with no feedback. Then interaction model came and, just put in a feedback, added the feedback piece, and it was getting clearer and clearer. Then the third model, transactional model. So this model is the most advanced. It is realistic. It's used in the healthcare. This model sees communication as continuous and simultaneous. Both senders and receivers communicating at the same time. I'm communicating. I'm saying something to you, but at the same time, you are talking to me. Do you understand what I'm trying to say there? You are talking to me, although I'm the one speaking. You're talking to me with non-verbal. You are here, or your eyes, or you're talking to me, although you're not talking. You're not saying anything. So that's the transactional model of communication where we are co-creating meaning. You're saying something before I finish, you are already saying something. So it goes beyond simply talking. And we have encoder, decoder, channels, and the noise. So anything that we are saying today, we are still going to be, moving around these models one way or the other, just to remind ourselves. And we have types of communication: verbal, non-verbal, written communication. I'm not going to go to that because we already know what they are. I'm already using them already. But communication is not only shaped by our words, by the words we use. Human emotions are involved and they influence our communication. Okay, now we're talking about human emotion. Let's talk about non-verbal component of communication. It is important we understand that. So what I was saying before, whether you like it or not, you are communicating. If that is the only thing you can take away from this presentation is something. Whether you like it or not, you are communicating. If you are silent, you are communicating. When you speak, you are communicating. When you sit, you are communicating. When you're standing up, when you react or you do not react, it's so complex. So whatever you do or do not do, you are communicating something. And one of the famous researchers on communication, Albert, was saying that there's a rule, 7-38-55 rule. And he explained that 7% of our communication is made up of words that we speak. 38% is tone, the tone of our voice, how we say it, pitch, emphasis, and all that. Then 55% is our body language, facial expression, our gestures, our posture, This shows that strong communication isn't what we say, it's how we say it. Our tone. For example, if you speak with a confident tone, you are telling me one way or the other, and the right body language, you're kind of sending me a message that you want to persuade me to do that thing. However, if your words are confident, but you're nervous, I might not be able to give you credibility, or your words might not be credible enough, because in that case, you're not portraying, although you are saying what you know, but you're not, you are not acting it. So it's like a misalignment. So our tone of voice, how you say the words matters. Tone. I hope. What's the time? I mean, I know I don't have enough time. I have the tendency of emphasizing too much one way or the other. Okay. So what really matters, if you say something like "I'm fine" and your tone is saying another thing, you are not actually saying you're fine. That's what I was talking about. So we have principles of effective communication. And in that we have 7 C's, clear, concise, concrete, I won't go too much with that too, but I want to also just look at the cautious part of it. That number 7, the cautious part of it. Okay, then we also have SBAR. I won't go to that too, because I know we are short of time. We know we are competent, we are professionals. We've been taught, we still remember, and we do it, especially in fast-paced environments, hospital environment. We use this a lot. Okay, so let's just move on. So, but the issue is, unfortunately, despite all the knowledge that we have, these models and this SBAR and this all that, as nursing professionals, we still find ourselves falling into the pitfall, of pithole of ineffective communication. Why? Why? So think about the barriers that affected you one way or the other in your communication, in your place of work, within your team, with your parent, patients, in your relationship relationship. Can you type in the comments and just, say something? Why do nurse professionals still find themselves in the pitfall of ineffective communication? Why? What do you think? Please chat me up. Emotions, language, culture, disabilities, inadequate listening skills, a lot. So we can categorize them into psychological, barrier, language or culture, physiological, attitudinal, systematic, and all. Okay, let me just move on. Let me move on. An average person knows what they want to say. An average nurse is competent. The truth is we can all speak. It's there. An average person knows what they want to say. There's knowledge there. However, communication is still ineffective. It's determined by three things: you, the place, and the other person. You, the place, and the other person. So when we talk about you, it's not just your clinical competence. It is who you are, your emotions, how you communicate it when stressed, under pressure. The place is how busy that place is, the structural system. The other person is, when we're talking about who the other person is, who is your decoder, the patient, your colleagues, the manager, the leaders, your spouse. So entirely, instead of listening, it depends on how that pans out. So now let's talk about the place. Environment plays a major role. Noisy environments, busy, stressful, distractions, every workload, lack of time, patient is not listening. I know it's sad, but the reality is how many nurses have that much time to connect with patients in a workplace where you barely can go for a 30 minutes break? The place, leadership, it shapes your communication culture. There are some people that, for example, I can practically tell us that my experience working in the US and working in Canada, they are both different when it comes to communication. And working in Nigeria, they are both different. So having worked in different places, I've experienced firsthand how communication changes depending on the environment you found yourself. The pace of the unit, the leadership style of that person, the person you're working with, of your leader. The same nurse who communicated, in a way here must not communicate the same way on the other setting. That's how it works. So the place is very important. Then the other person, who are you talking to? Who is this other person? Communicating with a patient, for example, communicating with the patient requires empathy and reassurance, right? Communicating with your colleagues, you need clarity. You need to work as a team. Communicating with your leader, you need to be professional. You need to be confident. So communication must be adapted based on who you are speaking with or what their needs are. And that is one of the problems that we have been seeing, or, many nurses struggle to adapt to this communication in their, to their audience, and they feel closeness can replace professionalism. And, this is a problem. When you speak to your manager as if you're speaking to your friend, when you develop a relationship with your patient, like they are your family, or talk to them as a friend with no limitation. Recently, there was that post on the FNNMA platform where one of our lawyers was talking about a nurse who loaned money from a patient, and it just escalated like that. I know some of you saw that. So when you speak to people based on who they are, that is effective communication. You're actually, but let's go to the real business. You. Something changes you when the environment and the other person moves away from the norm. something changes. So the question is, how do we communicate effectively when the environment becomes stressful or when the interactions become difficult, during difficult interactions? How do we make sure that our communication stays clear, is calm, is effective in the midst of pressure? How can you make sure your communication stays effective? And these are the times that it matters most. Now, let's just play a scenario, you know. Now, in certain environments, stress is sure, it can't go away. In the hospital, it can't go away. Heavy workload, like, it can't go away. So for many nurses, the moment we enter into the fertility doors, the quiet disappears, noise hits, monitors beeping, voices calling out, footsteps rushing past you. There's no time to ease into the day, no time to settle in. Only time to think fast, communicate clearly, respond, act. Although this might be a typical stressful one, but for some, that might not be the norm. For senior nurses, the moment where you are stressed out about managing complex, conflicting demands, mediating disputes, meeting organization metrics and all, then you begin to feel certain changes in your emotions. At this moment, we all remember that our brain changes. I just want to remind you, the amygdala activates, cortisol and adrenaline increase, fight and flight response and all that. How does this affect what we see, how we talk that day? How does it influence your ed? That's a good question. And some of you would say, well, how does that apply? So the answer is the brain activities reduces our emotional regulation at that time. So both listening and communication become harder. Our breathing is fast, heart rate increase. How many of us have been in that position every day, almost all the time, as a nurse. And even if you're not in the fast-paced practice, you still have that once in a while. There's no how. Then at that time, all the communication techniques just flow away. They flew away. You don't remember any of them anymore. Research shows that communication competence is deeply interconnected with emotional regulation, anxiety management, and psychological safety. So your vocabulary change. You might begin to say what you don't want to say, which you can actually, at the end of the day, you can regret. Another study in 2014, in 2024, they explored emotions and they realized that emotional regulation and positive emotional state improve social interaction. It improves of openness, connection, and communication effectiveness. So all these two studies that I put here, Mora and for Saslow, both of them, they're talking about how to support, communication with emotional regulation. So honestly, this is extremely relevant in nursing as we constantly communicate under pressure. So it is very key, emotional regulation. So quickly, I just want to talk about effective communication and emotional intelligence. That is where we're going to, stay. So we have recognized that emotions is there, and it's affecting our communication and all that, right? The pressure is there, it's regulating our emotion and all that, or, just putting them where they're not supposed to be. Emotional intelligence refers to the ability to recognize, understand, and regulate your emotion, as well as navigate and influence the emotions of others effectively. It is crucial that we're able to do both. So in conflict management, in strengthening relationship, achieving success and all that, emotional intelligence is very key. And we have sub-skills, we have composite skills, 5 composite skills, and we have sub-skills. So in the sub-skills, we have 6 sub-skills directly influence our communication. And these are the 6 sub-skills: self-awareness, self-regulation, empathy, impulse, emotional regulation, social awareness. We'll not be able to touch all that today, but we'll touch on emotional self-regulation. We'll talk on social awareness. We'll talk on impulse regulation if time permits us. Okay, so self-awareness. So, self-awareness. Now, the first thing, just like I said in the other on the other slide, is for you to be aware what actually is happening to me. What is happening to me? So now that we have all this, we have self-regulation, empathy. How would you rate your effective communication? Let's look at these parameters. Do you practice self-awareness? Do you self-regulate? Empathy, impulse control, emotional regulation, social awareness. Please, on the charts, how would you rate from 1 being the lowest and 5 being the highest? How would you rate your level of effective communication using these parameters? Quickly, 1 minute. Can you put it on the chat? Thank you. Let's do that fast. How would you rate yourself using these parameters? Yeah? Okay, let's move on. So, self-awareness, being self-aware of the shift in your emotions and how it influences your brain. Then you communicate or behave accordingly. That is the first hurdle to emotional regulation. That's the first hurdle to communication, if communicating effectively. So let us remember that the patient safety depends on this, and our career growth also depends on this. Yeah. So being self-aware is a form of emotional intelligence. So what is happening to me? How am I feeling? Why am I feeling this way? In this emotional wheel, we have a lot of emotions that I added. I used that. I don't know if you can see it. There's a lot of um, emotional actualization where you can actually know what is wrong with you. So this is like a temperature where you check what actually is happening, you know, and by the time you do that, you are able to actually be aware of what is happening to you and how you're feeling. And here I have a triangle, emotional self-awareness triangle. And this one is just talking about your thoughts and your feelings coming together to form your emotion. For example, you're not thinking, I'm being attacked. She may begin to, feel defensive, sound frustrated and respond reactively. It's different because he's thinking somebody is attacking her. Then another nurse in another situation can just, consciously practice self-awareness, may say, oh, let me first understand what is happening, understand the concern of this person. So that person may communicate more calmly and professionally. So this is why self-awareness, and thinking, our thoughts, our feelings, getting to know what actually we're thinking or, feeling at that time matters to what we do or what we do at the end of the day, our behavior. So understanding who you are is, we also must know that who we are is actually as a result of what we have experienced, our trauma. You see some people, by the time you talk about something, they just they don't want to hear it because you're traumatized in that area. Then the culture, the values, as our assumptions, they're all the things that determines who we are. I have something here that I want to ask. What is your default communication style? So if you can, if not, I have this code here, QR code. It's a quiz that is a if you scan this QR code, you'll be able to answer some questions. These questions will tell you where you belong. Maybe if you're analytical, if you're intuitive, if you're functional, if you're personal, it will tell you. So this is very handy. If you need it, maybe you can You can let us know. We can send it to you. So, because this is part of the self-awareness we are talking about. How do you communicate under pressure? So if you don't know who you are, if you don't know where you belong to, you might not be able to see that. So that is, yeah, we have analytical. So we might not be able to go into that. So what are the practical strategies for effective communication? So we know that research already backed all these things up, that we have talked about the research. We pause to process our emotion. We breathe before you speak. By breathing, you are, you are one way or the other resetting your emotions. You are intentionally practicing social awareness. So, pausing, breathing, listening. Let's talk about listening a little bit here. Most of the time, you think you are listening, but actually you are not listening. Stephen Covey was saying that most people do not listen with the intent to understand. They listen with the intent to respond. And that is what happens sometimes. I want to go to the next patient. We are not listening. You are not paying attention. You are not doing eye contact. You are not listening. You just want to go to the next patient. Sometimes let's look at that. And people may forget your words, but they remember how you made them feel. That is the contagion theory. We will not be able to. I have a lot of things here, but we will not be able. I remember when I was in charge of one of the researches that I was doing, and I happened to, get like 75% of the patients. Somebody was asking me, how did you do it? We see these patients every day. We see this participant every day, and we talk to them. They will say they don't want to do. How did you, by the way, how did you get all these patients, all these participants? And I just feel it's contagion theory that works there. Suggest your emotions, your attitude, your behaviors. The energy you bring into a room affects everyone. So you build trust through that. You build relationship. And it's really, really key for career growth. You see opportunities opening to you. So these are they are very key. Your social awareness, the ability to understand what people are going through, their emotions, their perspective, see from their lenses, their culture, their unspoken needs. They don't need to say it, A socially aware nurse can recognize when a patient is afraid, when a colleague is overwhelmed, when the culture is different. These are the things that we need to put in place, to actually be able to climb that ladder. So I'd like to clarify here, that there are some things that we think that we are doing, even as African nurses. We think, oh, okay, this is how we speak. I'm being assertive. It's not all the time you're assertive. Sometimes we come out rude. Assertiveness is speaking with confidence, without disrespecting the other person. You are preserving respect both for yourself and for the other person. For example, let's say somebody say, "That's not my job." Maybe your superior or your manager just came and say, "Oh, can you do? That's not my job." Or saying, "You are wrong." These are the you. So let's choose our words. Think, just like we said, breathe, think, pause. These are the things that we need to put in place. So no time. We have it in the slide. If you need it, we can give you the slide. I can send it to you if you need it. No more, we don't have enough time. So invest in your professional development, in your workshop, speak with intentions, look for mentors. For us that are nurses and midwives practicing abroad, sometimes the hardest part is not the clinical part, it's not the competence, it is finding our voice, in new environments. So, and we know that there are assumptions, but there's always something to do to overcome every bias, the stereotypes. We have one way or the other, something that we can do to overcome that. So how would you show up for yourself? That's the question I want to ask you. At work from now on, how would you show up for yourself? Will you be able to say, I have mastered? We can't really master your emotion, but at least I'm aware. How would you become the best version of yourself? What would you set yourself up for, to get to your career goal? So I want to challenge us today to apply at least one skill that we've learned today after this session. Be intentional, speak up, don't be quiet. You are doing yourself a disservice when you were quiet. Your career is taking a hit. So next time you are under pressure, breathe, pause. What is the goal? What do I want to say here? You know, and remember your emotions are contagious. Thank you. Thank you very much for listening. Yeah. And
Thank
what's the
you.
time?
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Sorry, I know I've taken more time.
I want to see our emoji. Let's appreciate her. Let's appreciate our sister. Hello, everyone. Are we still together? I can't see our hands up. Let's give it to her. Let's show love. Let's show love. She has done extensively with this topic, and I'm sure one way or the other, we have learned a new thing. Personally, I learned a new thing. Do you know that your environment, I mean, your communication depends on where you find yourself? So that's one thing that I'm holding on to personally. I don't know what you pick from this. And before I give a brief summary of what she has talked about, please, if you have any question, you can use our chat board to pen down your question, or you can signify if you have a question. Today, we learned that communication touch every area of our lives. And communication is also tied to how we perceive competence. I'm not going to take the presentation, but just to give us a brief from it. So, and why does communication matter? She talked about that. He said, poor communication is killing. Poor communication is killing. She showed us the statistics of people that died as a result of poor communication. So why do nurses still find themselves in the pitfall of ineffective communication? I believe we all saw the reasons she gave to us. And how can we be effective in our communication? She gave us some tips like pause to process your emotions. Breathe. Breathe before you speak. Listen. Be intentional about social awareness. Set your goals, focusing on the issue at hand. Don't be distracted. Choose and deliver your words carefully and with intentionality. And also, she encouraged us to invest in professional development. Thank you. Now we can take our question because we only have 4 minutes left to the end of this call. So please, if you have a question, can you please signify? Because I don't think there's any question in the chat. Anybody with question, or if you have contributions, yeah, we can learn from one another. Please, you have the floor. We are all nurses. Let's learn from one another. We are waiting. Nurses in the house. Are we still ruminating about it? Okay, please go ahead if you want to type. Yeah, we will take it. Thank you. Please, if you want to type, please go ahead. Yes, Dr. Farumbi, you have the floor. Please unmute and
Thank you so much, Ma. Yeah, I've unmuted. That was a brilliant and fantastic presentation, Dr. Ayeni. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for the insights. Thank you for really loading us with things. You don't just work with assumption, and we really, really appreciate that time, the moment you've given to us, giving us this insight. I just want to ask this question because over time I've discovered, having rapport with our colleagues, especially, internationally trained nurses coming to, where we found ourselves in different climes and all that, we have the pattern of communication back home, of course, which, of course, if you bring to a setting as such, that you find yourself, it could be a lot of problems. So how do you streamline? I mean, how do you, I don't want to use the word streamline now. How do you effectively, active? I know you've talked a lot about some of these practices, but how do you still overcome a lot of resistance, when it comes to as much as you can, you want to display all of these strategies, you want to adopt them, you want to use them in your setting, maybe in your work setting, in your academia, and all of that. But you're still being, I've had people complaining about being misinterpreted or being misrepresented. I know it borders on how it's been presented as well, how all of these things, back home, we know that when you're saying things, the matter and the way you present it matter. But even those who are trying their best, because I've seen it, not just one, not just two cases of people who had tried all their best, just to communicate effectively, especially with their bosses. And in the course of doing that, they felt they were being maligned, or they see them that they think they know too much, and they're trying to be assertive, but as much as they can, they felt that was the best way to present themselves. And we've tried style and this style. Even at that, they still have problems, especially when it comes to the managerial, role. If it's still with colleagues, they could still weather most of the storms. I know you understand what I mean. So how best can we encourage people? Because such people become, at some point, become so bottled up, and it's becoming an emotional problem for some set of people, that they I've seen someone who have panic attack even going to work, because of this experience of trying as much as they can, to be friendly with their managers or with their colleagues and all that. But even at that, it's still not working. I'm sure if maybe one or two I've learned a lot, that I could also still, relate with people. I'm just saying, but on a general note, how best, can you go, irrespective of the resistance and all of that that you're meeting, to still practice effective.
Thank you very much. That was a very good question, and I can relate. I can relate perfectly. Like, as nurses working abroad, I know there's a lot. We are in between the intersection of being in a new environment, and at the same time, we have our own cultures back home, and we need to learn new cultures. So I know that sometimes it can be difficult to get through, but there is one thing that always comes to my mind. Who are your mentors? Who do you talk to? In that situation, then, this is part of emotional intelligence. It's what can you control? What can you control? Which one is out of your control? If something is out of your control, you have nothing to do. As in, you just need to hope, be optimistic, be resilient, keep doing what you're doing, because it is out of your control. You get me? So there are some situations that you can't just do anything. You've tried. But there are some situations that with resilience, with optimism, these are also soft skills of the emotional intelligence. When you keep doing it, even if it's not working, but you know what you want and you go for it. So it's then when you are doing that, just make sure you have somewhere to fall, like relationship that are okay for you to vent. When you vent, you feel better. You have somewhere, you have a journal to write. Sometimes I take my journal and I write, because if you don't do that, you will get in trouble. That emotion will push you to do something or say something you will regret at work. So it's better you de-escalate. You at home with somebody, just make sure you are doing something. Then use your voice. But it is possible. So I want us to be optimistic, sincerely. We know things can be, as in the relationship might be very difficult, with some leaders, but it is a sign that you are needed there. So keep saying this. And if it's out of your control, leave it. Don't stress too much. But at the same time, are you aware? Have you done justice to your awareness, self-awareness, that in truth, you've done everything when it comes to communication? Are you actually communicating this thing well? That's another aspect of it. Because sometimes, we have this thing, reality testing. Sometimes we're not in emotional intelligence. Sometimes you might not even know that it is not reality. You feel that you are actually communicating, but if you look at it, you are not communicating. So has that person done a reality check, reality checking, reality testing to know that indeed communication has taken place, or she has done a lot, or he has done a lot, in that aspect? If not, if yes, good. Just be resilient, do that. But if not, we need to go back to the drawing board and do better with communication. I hope I answer your question.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, let's take this question on the chat board. Sorry, I'm just being mindful of our time. All right, so yeah, this person said, thank you so much for the presentation, ma. 2 questions. How do one solve a problem of poor interpersonal relationship among colleagues and co-workers? Incredibly precise and meticulous planning process. And the second one says ineffective communication with patients. So how do we solve those 2 problems? 1, poor interpersonal relationship among colleagues and co-workers. Second, ineffective communication with patients.
Okay. So like you said, thank you for that question, Taiwo. Thank you very much. So you said ineffective communication. We have told told ourselves about the barriers to ineffective communication. Let's check. In this particular, those situations you're talking about, let's go back to what we talked about barriers of ineffective communication. You'll see there's something in that place that was wrong. So if we go back to the slide to check the barriers that we have, if you take away the barriers, you will be fine. You'll be able to communicate effectively. So the problem is there are barriers. How do we take them out? So how do one solve a problem of poor interpersonal relationship and among colleagues and co-workers? That is a very good question. So interpersonal relationship, when we don't have enough, maybe I didn't, because we don't have enough time. So when we're talking about interpersonal relationship, we have to unpack a lot of things there. The first thing, like I told you, I was saying in the other slide, is who are you? How do you speak? And we have one thing there too that I hope somebody will still be able to do that. That's QR code. Scan it. You'll be able to discover how you communicate. I've done my own. If you will discover how you communicate, that is your default. So anything come anyhow, that is your default. So when you know who you are, you know your default, then you know how to change, how to navigate that little. Oh, I am that kind of person. If they say anything like this, I don't take nonsense. You know yourself. Then you'll be able to, okay, now, what can I do to make this better, to be a better person, to be a better version of myself, So it's all still boils down to you, knowing who you are, knowing how you're made of looking to. So when we have a problem with colleagues or with patients, and it's about relationship or communication, the problem is always you. The problem might also be that person. there's a problem in between the two. If you can check that problem and be able to get that problem, it's like a problem solving thing. If you're able to solve that problem, to get it, you'll be able to solve it. So it's about checking and assessing yourself, assessing your environment, assessing that person. What do we talk about? If you had told me a specific question, maybe a scenario, I would have talked to it, but I hope I'm able to have that. Then
Okay,
we should also one more thing. One thing I also want us to know, although we're talking about emotional intelligence, this and that, let's know that we can't control our emotion. All that. You cannot control your emotion. No, we can't. What can we do? What can you cannot control it. Like, okay, do like this. What do you think we can do? We can't control your emotion. Did anybody say anything?
Yeah, I just want to ask that, do we have anybody that wants to respond to that statement that you can't control your emotions when it comes to professional communication? Does anybody want to respond to that? Please signify. We are all learning. We are in a learning environment, please. Nobody is an island of knowledge.
Yes.
Or maybe I should put it in another way, that do we agree that emotion cannot be controlled?
Because
Do
when you
you
say you want to
agree
control
or you disagree? So two sides. If you are for for it, that it's true, we can't control our emotion. And let's know what will be the impact. Yes, Dr. Farumbi, please, ma. Unmute and talk to us.
Thank you, Ma. Well, my submission, it would be that well, she's right to say you can't control emotion, but what I think she's also trying to say is that you can't control the extent of what your reaction would be when you let out your emotions. So what we can control really, it's the uh, precursors of the triggers to our emotions. Because when by the time we let the triggers get to us, by the time you are reacting, what she meant by you can't control your emotion, you can't control how far when you want to let out that emotion, that you want to give it the best of, I mean, you really want to let, you just want to give, you want to give a commensurate reaction to the triggers you receive, then by then you probably would not be able to control how far you would go with the emotion. You probably will not be able to go with the extent of what you would say. And that is why back home we say words are like eggs. By the time it's smashed, you can't get hold of it again into whole, the whole egg again. So that is what she meant by you can't control your emotion at that instance. But what you can control is your reactions to, the precursors, those things that initiate that irritability in you, those things that make you to go into the extremes, of reacting to our emotions. So that's my submission anyway. So I'm not saying it's wrong or she's right. Yes, at some point, by the time everything is, everything boils down and you now feel, oh, why have I done this? Why have I said that? By then you can't really control and you're ready. So, but we can control what gets to us. So it's more like we've got sheets. All she has presented to us today are more like the shields around us that will not allow us, to unleash emotions. I had read a book that said an average individual has a level of madness in them. All it needs is a trigger. So you can control the trigger, not get it to you. So you could dodge the bullet, you could dodge things that get to you by shielding yourself from anything that could make you to unleash your emotion. Otherwise, by the time you want to give it, you can't control how far you can go with your.
Thank you, Ma. I have this response on the chat, and I think I love it. The response is, yes, emotions can be controlled to a reasonable extent, but not completely stopped. Emotions are natural human responses, yet we can learn how to manage, express, and respond to them in healthier ways. Thank you, thank you, thank you for this response. So any other question, any other comments before we call it a date on this
Somebody
call?
has practical example there. I think somebody was saying
Is it? I think
practical
the person
example.
is asking that some. Let me check, please. Is asking that there should be a practical example to the prior question.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So thank you everyone for your contribution. So I would like to call on Mr. Seun Adebayo to give us the vote of thanks before we call it a date.
All right, thank you very much, Ma. Thank you for the opportunity to even give this vote of thanks. And thank you, Dr. Olabisi Ayeni, for this wonderful, I'll call it teaching, I'll call it lecture, and I'll call it exposition as well, because it has really exposed us and, and brought out the gray areas around communication. We've learned so much today. One thing that I'll take home from today's lecture or lesson is that when we are not even saying anything, we are also communicating. Our silence speaks louder than even our voice sometimes. So I've really take that one in and I've internalized it, and I've learned so much personally, and I believe others have also learned one thing or the other as well. I really want to thank you for your time. I want to thank you for the effort you put into this lecture. Not minding that it's going to just be a virtual thing, but you put in 100% of what you will put in if you have been invited by maybe the United States, the President of the United States already. We can see the effort. The effort it's showing. Thank you so much, man, for your time. Thank you for your effort. Thank you for the dedication you put into this. We pray that the Lord will continue to bless you and the Lord will continue to expand your knowledge in Jesus' name. And
Amen.
I want to also thank the forum as well, because it's so thoughtful of the forum, to have thought of bringing something like this that can help us, nurses generally in this is a pathway to our career development, because if we miss communication, then we have missed, we have missed a lot. And I want to thank the forum. I want to thank the president and the leaders of the forum as well. Thank you so much for always bringing this opportunity forward for nurses and giving us avenue to grow. Thank you so much, man. Thank you for your time, everyone that has also come. And I pray that as we internalize these lectures, as we internalize the lessons, we will not be stunted in our career growth. We will see ourselves always at the top. Thank you so much for your time once again, and good evening.
Thank you. Please, before we go, I just want to quickly use this opportunity to recognize the Royal Highness in our midst. Uh, Dr. Obaruterian Kayode Ogungbon is here with us. He's been with us for a while, but we couldn't just break the presentation. So Kabiyesi, we recognize you and we want you to say us well to we like all them ministry, the people of Ijakauke. Thank you. May your reign be long in Jesus' name. And thank you, everybody. We hope we'll see you next time when we call you to join us on this professional development uh, presentations. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Have a wonderful
Thank
evening.
you.
Have a
Bye.
wonderful day, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.